Hello and welcome to episode 25 of Attention Engineer. I'm Laura Kidd, a music producer, songwriter and solo artist making music as Penfriend. In this noisy online world, the gift of someone's attention is priceless. So thank you for joining me on my mission to inspire creativity in every listener through having the conversations I've always hoped for with some of the artists I admire the most. Thank you so much for choosing to press play on this episode today. I'm delighted to be bringing you another conversation with one of my absolute favourite musical people. Before we dive in though, I have some news for you. I will be releasing a brand new song this Friday, the 4th of December, and I'm really excited about it. It's not a song from my forthcoming album, no, but the first of a series of tracks I've been working on for some time with a secret collaborator. Yes, this Friday all will be revealed, and the very best way to stay in the know and get an invitation to come and listen is to hop onto my friendly mailing list by visiting penfriend.rocks. I'll wait while you get that sorted. Ready? Okay, onwards. An artist of enduring international acclaim and a justly revered lyricist, Thea Gilmore's musical settings have taken many ingenious detours in the 22 years since the release of her debut album, Burning Dorothy. Uncategorizable, whip-smart, and unafraid to speak her mind, her Twitter bio reads singer, songwriter, tall bird, corrupter of words. I first met Thea when we played the same stage at Greenbelt Festival a few years ago, and she's been incredibly friendly and supportive ever since. She consistently makes great, honest work with integrity. She's wise, funny, and a bit silly, and it was a joy to catch up with her to record this conversation. Here we go. Well, hi Thea. Would you like to introduce yourself for the listeners of Attention Engineer?
Yeah, hi, I'm Thea Gilmore and it's great to be here.
Yay. How do you describe yourself to people if you had to do that?
I try so hard not to. I mean, I don't know really. I suppose I just say songwriter and people go, a what? What, you make a living out of that? And I'm like, well, occasionally, not always. It's getting harder. But so I don't know. I can't be doing with the kind of labels. I don't like being called folk. I don't like it. It's boring, isn't it? And it's limiting. So it's not mine.
Well, especially when you've made so much music. Because how many albums is it? I was counting them up, and it looked like 18. But I don't know if one of them is a live album, so you might not count it as one. Some people get funny about that. They only want the studio ones counted. How many have you made?
I think I'm about to make album 18. I think it's just coming now.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Have you written it?
Yeah, it's kind of, album 18 is in the bag. It's done. It'll be out next year.
Oh, amazing. Oh, so you've recorded it too?
Yeah, it's done.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
So you've been busy then?
Yeah, I have.
Very good.
Yeah.
That's exciting news.
I think so. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I'd hope that you would find it exciting.
No, well, it's I've kind of done it a few times now, but this is a funny one because it being album 18 and it's a sort of like it's definitely a coming of age album, which is weird given that I'm 40. I'd have thought it'd take this long.
It happens when it happens, doesn't it?
I know. Yeah, it's taken me this long to grow up.
But that is a lot of music. So I think it would be kind of a weird thing to be able to sum that up in a sentence of what that is. Because you haven't made 18 albums that sound the same. That would be so boring.
I think some people would disagree with you. I think.
Okay.
But I don't know. I mean, I just like writing songs. At the end of the day, that's the thing that kind of gets me excited. It's the thing that gets me up in the morning is being able to just make something new where there wasn't something before. I think that's just like, I think anyone creative feels like that, don't they? It's a kind of magical thing to be able to do. And I'm ridiculously lucky to have been able to do it this long. I mean, I can't actually believe, and particularly at the moment with all the shit going on in the world, I just can't really believe that I'm still here and still doing it. It's weird. Well,
I didn't realise until I started looking you up in preparation for this that you put your first album out when you were 19. I didn't know that fact about you. I knew you'd been doing it for a while and I knew that you had been very successful, but I didn't know that.
Yeah. Again, I think the successful thing might be, it depends on whose eyes you're looking at it through. I've been doing it a long time. When I started making music and kind of making records, not albums, but records at 16, really. So, yeah, it was accidental. I mean, it wasn't, making music was very deliberate, but the whole kind of idea of it being a career was a complete accident. I didn't believe that was possible. And I suspect a career like mine isn't possible now, but because I just kind of fell into it and just got very, very lucky. And I was an arrogant little so-and-so as well. I think that probably helped at the time. I've become less arrogant as I've got older, which is, I think, a good thing.
I think that's the way it seems to go. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. More and more self-awareness.
Yeah. Self-consciousness in my case. So, oh my God, what am I doing? Yeah. But no, I mean, it's just been an extraordinary ride, really. Hopefully it's not over yet, but we'll see.
Well, how do you feel about your earlier work then, with such distance?
You know that feeling when you look at a picture of yourself with a really shit haircut? That's what I feel like. It's like, funnily enough, I was literally just listening to a song that I wrote when I was 20, just a second ago, because I was sending it to my patrons, and I listened to it and I thought, actually, I stand by that as a song. It's sort of like an end of relationship song, and I was like, no, that's good lyrically. It sort of really holds water, but oh my God, I sound like Minnie Mouse, and it's just there are bits of it that you just go, oh, cringe, this is awful. How could I have let that out in the world? But also, there's a certain degree of pride, I think, in the kind of young me. It's kind of like, yeah, you had some balls to do that. You had some balls to say that and put that out in the world. Stupidity and balls.
Yeah. Stupid balls.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That's a long conversation.
Yeah, I bet it is. Do you feel that you have a mission in your music career? Because you're saying that you fell into it, but have there ever been values that you've thought, it's very important to me to do it this way?
The most important thing to me was to be honest. And actually, I know that sounds kind of obvious and it sounds easy, but actually for me, I'm not someone who would ever lie in my work, but I find it quite difficult to be open, I think. And my entire career has been a sort of process of kind of just taking a layer of the brick wall down every single record I release. And so now, actually, at this point, I sort of feel like there's a fair amount of me that's visible in the next record that I'm going to release, and that's really uncomfortable for me. I don't like that. Okay. So that's been my mission, and that's a super personal mission. But I suppose the kind of overall, really, my mission has been just to keep doing it, just to be able to keep making music. And I think, I don't buy into this, people kind of burn hot and then they kind of burn out when they're young. I think, you look at people like Paul Simon or Dylan, and they're making brilliant. I mean, Leonard Cohen's last album, they were making amazing music into their sort of 70s. And I think that's the real test of an artist, actually, is if you can keep making music that's relevant to people as you get older and bring people with you. I think that's brilliant.
Well, yeah, I feel the same way. I think being a career artist is, as you clearly are, that's always been my mission, is to keep making records until I'm really super old, and I can't see any reason why I would stop. And I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be more and more interesting, like you're saying, because you've lived more, you've got more experience and more wisdom and more everything
totally
to share with people.
But don't you think it's really unusual for women to do it? It's like it's all right for a bloke to do it somehow. But,
well, I don't know if it's unusual for a woman to do it, but it definitely doesn't. It's definitely not all right for them to do it. but I don't know because people Patti Smith is allowed to do it.
Yeah.
But maybe she's the only one. You can only have one, remember?
Yeah. We don't want them getting too uppity, do we?
Absolutely not. And if you play electric guitar, you're still Polly Harvey. And if you play the piano, you're still Tori Amos.
That's right. Yeah.
And have you come across that yourself in these years of making music?
Yeah.
Ever heard of that?
We can't review that record. We've already reviewed one female singer-songwriter this month.
We've already got one.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, isn't it? Yeah. Well.
You were one of the first artists to have a subscription club, weren't you?
Yes.
Angels in the Abattoir.
Oh my God, yeah.
What an uplifting name.
Yeah. Isn't it?
Come and join my club. What's it called, Thea? Oh.
Yeah.
I know it's from a lyric, isn't it?
Yes, it is from a lyric. And I kind of like, obviously, the idea of angels being being sort of theatre angels is an idea as old as time. And I kind of thought, I know. That will be a great name. And a lot of them liked it, and then a lot of them really didn't. They were kind of split down the middle. It was a properly Marmite name. But yeah, I mean, that was a bit mad, really, because I remember Kristen Hirsch setting she had Strange Angels, and setting hers up, and it got me thinking a lot about the nature of patronage and how the arts, it's a sort of very, very old story about arts being supported by people who really deeply care about it and being supported in a kind of very sustainable way. And I thought, I can probably do this. But unfortunately, my kind of eyes are a bit bigger than my belly, I think, in terms of stuff like that, because I can do the music and I can do the kind of communication, but I can't do technology at all. It's sort of, it really is beyond me. And again, I mean, we're talking about, I think it was 2008 that I set that up, and things like Patreon, for example, just didn't exist. The idea of a subscription model just didn't exist in any way that was kind of user friendly. And what I needed was subscription for dummies, which is now sort of, it's everywhere now. But back then it was kind of like I had to do all of the back end of it. It just wasn't what I was good at. So it kind of, I ended up having to wind it up after a couple of years, just because it became too much of a beast really for me to manage. And I was genuinely doing it all on my own. Everything was, I mean, you know that song, don't you? Yes. Everything's kind of like you do.
My brain is wearily nodding.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's hard, and I also had a 2-year-old kid as well, and so there was a lot of juggling, there was a lot of touring, and but it was such an experience, that kind of like, and now I've resurrected it with Patreon because that technology exists now, where I don't have to be cleverer than I am, or attempt to be cleverer than I am. And I absolutely love that connection with people. It's just, it's magical, really. And it sort of feels like something that every musician should try and do. Yeah. To have that kind of really in-depth relationship, which is what it's all about, really. It's just about communication at the end of the day, the whole music thing.
Absolutely. And so before 2008, when you set that up, how did you get to the point where you knew that would be something you wanted to try?
2006 was a bit of a sort of like watershed year for me, because 2006 and 2007, because I had my first kid, and he was born into a bit of a I don't know, like everything sort of blew up on me. I wasn't expecting it. I mean, it's no secret he was not planned, and I genuinely didn't think I would ever have kids. I was not somebody who wanted them. I didn't think it was something that was going to happen in my life, and it wasn't. That was fine. I sort of like, I'd chosen music, which is a difficult career to have kids in, and I was like, I was down with that. That was good. And then suddenly, all of a sudden, along comes Egan, just kind of made the choice for me, and I was like, oh God. And everybody said, your career's over. Just like that. And it's like, yeah, if you have this baby, you're done. And that pissed me off.
Yeah,
obviously.
Really
But also this is all I can do. My education finished when I was 16. So I didn't do uni, I didn't do anything. And I was kind of like, well, I do actually have to feed this child somehow as well. So everything blew up. So I split with my manager. I decided that I was going, in my infinite wisdom, that I was going to do a really big tour when my baby, just after my baby was born. I was like, that's a good idea, just to make some money. Because
that's a first-time mum thing, isn't it?
Yeah, they're portable, aren't they? I thought, and they're very portable. It's just the rest of it that you have to worry about. So, but really, the idea of kind of like creating some sort of sustainable income that didn't revolve around record labels, I suppose, didn't revolve around other people saying you can release a record at this point, and this is how much money you're going to get to do it or not get. My income up to that point was just so up and down, or most of the time kind of non-existent. Up to that point, I had never, ever made a penny from playing live. Everything that I'd ever made came in sort of form of advances. And you're talking tiny, tiny amounts of money, definitely not anything that you could sustain a child on. So I needed to diversify. I needed to find a way to kind of connect with people, keep my career alive, go direct to people who actually cared about it, and bypass everybody in the middle, basically. And it worked a treat. It was amazing. And the tour, believe it or not, was massively successful as well. I couldn't believe it. And he was portable, as it turned out. Very.
Great.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, that's amazing that you made that work. That sounds like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it, it was mental. It's stupid. What a stupid person. But, my whole life has just been a series of kind of blunders, really, that happily worked out. So...
Well, the problem is, because I'm someone who definitely bites off way more than one person can chew. And the problem is, I make it work. And then my brain's like, well, you did it last time.
Yeah.
Big deal. So you could just do more then.
Yeah.
It's only really recently I've started to try and plan out my time and go, oh, there's not physically enough time to do that thing I want to do, actually. But I really want to, though. And then sort of like try to figure it out. It's hard to stretch the time out.
Well, when I read your emails, I literally, I get out of breath when I read how much you're doing. I'm like, that's not human. She's not human. She's not human.
I'm sorry my emails weary you, so.
Yes, you should be. You put us all to shame, Laura. That's the thing.
Oh, God. I don't know. I'm trying to be more sensible, but I also don't want to be. And like I say, it's worked out so far. And it seems people tell me a lot, oh, it just looks so organised. And I am organised. I'm not a disorganised person because I wouldn't get anything done. But I don't plan things as much as it might seem. So it's sort of happy accidents and things. And
yeah,
you have to just do the stuff you've got energy for, don't you? And if you've got energy for an idea, I think it's like a song or an album or anything like that, any little thing even. If you've got, for some reason, this ridiculous drive to make this thing, then you just have to do that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, and that's the nature of creative people, isn't it?
Yeah.
You kind of, and once when you've got the sort of the wind under your wings, you have to ride it, and if you don't, you kind of lose it. And I don't think my wind blows as strong as yours.
There's a lot of wind in this house.
Oh, hell yeah.
Sure. So, do you think of yourself as an organised person?
No.
How do you plan your time out?
I don't.
You don't think you are?
I'm really disorganised. I can be organised on some things. So if it's I could sort of like life admin, I can do, but musical admin, I'm shocking, really, really bad. But things sort of fall together quite well. Kind of by accident. So I suppose there must be a bit of directorship from me somewhere along the line, but it doesn't feel like it. It's a bit like songwriting. I don't really feel like, I certainly don't organise my songwriting, but I will sit down and a song will just sort of fall out. And I kind of like my life that way. And I've got so many super organised friends and they all look at me and tut most of the time. But I like not, I mean, it's in the sort of current climate as well, where nobody really knows what's going to happen next with the whole COVID thing. It's actually a real benefit to be totally disorganised because nothing really changes for me because I'm always winging it. So now everyone's having to behave like me. It's brilliant.
Well, yeah, I think that's a really good point. Yeah, independent musicians are sort of prepped for this kind of situation.
Yeah.
We're quite good at being on our own.
Yeah.
We're quite good at doing lots of things on a screen.
Definitely, yeah.
But with the children to think about as well, though, that must be like, how does it work when you're making albums and stuff with them around? Because I can imagine that there's a thing where you might feel disorganised with your sort of stuff that's not essential to the day necessarily. I don't know, but you must be organised because I'm sure their shoes are tied and they've eaten and they're clean and things. I don't know.
It's a bit touch and go.
I don't know anything about kids, can you tell?
You know more than me.
Do they have shoes?
No, they're pretty. I mean, they are now at an age where they can sort of do stuff for themselves, which is good. But I mean, I suppose I had to be a bit organised. I had to remember to feed them, although they will tell you that very often they don't get lunch because we don't do lunch in our house. But so I can organise the kids, and in terms of album making, I mean, I think over the last sort of 18 months, 2 years, I've kind of wrested control back of my own music making process. And it's become it falls completely to me now in a way that it possibly didn't before. And that's actually been quite a liberating experience. So yeah, I've had to really apply myself, but also not lose the the kind of haphazard nature of what I do, because there is a part of that makes me, and you can hear it in the music, and I like that sense of something just about to fall over.
Right.
And again, that is what makes, I suppose, what I do sound like me. Something just about to fall over. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
It's so nice to have that perspective of your music. Like, what is it about your music that makes it yours? I think that's important to know.
Yeah, and I think that's quite a hard question to answer, certainly for a lot of people, and particularly, like, as I mentioned earlier, the kind of the idea of being somebody who is a bit reluctant perhaps to let the walls down. I think finding yourself at the centre of your music for someone like me can be quite difficult, and can sometimes it can take a bit of doing, and suddenly when you do it, you don't want to let it go. And that's been a kind of important process, I think, for me over the last few years.
And so, are there any particular songs on the upcoming album? I don't want you to. This is not like I don't want any spoilers, because I just want to hear it when you're ready. But are there any particular songs that you're more nervous about people hearing because they're so honest, and more so than before? Do you have any of those?
Yeah, the whole record.
Oh, okay. How are you going to deal with that? Have you got any ideas for how to prep yourself for that moment?
I was planning on just hiding under the duvet for about 2 months. Yeah, no,
that's a solid plan.
Yeah, I thought so. No, this record has a couple of poems on it, weirdly, and they are probably above all else, because you can't hide. You can't hide when you're speaking words, I think. There's a certain element of being able to kind of dance around things when you're singing. But as soon as you start talking, it's so direct.
Yeah.
And yeah, they properly, there are a few knives out in those that there's a part of me that's a bit kind of worried about releasing them into the world. But they're gonna escape. They'll be picking the locks as we speak. So there's nothing I can do. They're coming out.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. I think that's what songs are for. For me, that's what songs are for.
What, making you uncomfortable?
Well, for me as a writer, they're for me to be the most honest I can be.
Yeah.
But also the very most wise. So like, I am honest. I'm an honest person when I talk to friends and my husband and everyone. I'm always honest. But I wouldn't necessarily sort of sum up a situation in a very poetic way, as I would in a song, hopefully in a song, in that very considered way, to say it the best I can ever say it. I would just sort of ramble at someone about, but be honest. So it's like the most beautiful, but hopefully the most devastating way of being honest as well, for me.
Oh, I love that, yeah.
I've got some on my new record that are like, whew, really. So I'm asking you because I'm asking myself. I need to figure out a way to prep myself for my next record coming out, because it's not that there's anyone who's going to go, that's about me, oh God. It's not that at all. It's just that there are things where I've decided to go into really heavy subjects, and then you're going, please listen to my stuff to the world, and then some people in the world will listen, and they might not, they're not prepped for that depth of, honesty and emotion and sadness and things. And then I have a bit of I feel a bit responsible for, are you okay today? Make sure you feel all right before you listen to this particular one. Maybe sit down or whatever. But that's not my job. It's up to people to listen if they want. I think as soon as you try and assume responsibility for your audience, I think you start losing it, don't you? Because that's something that I've grappled with a little bit, is the idea of when you send something out into the world that has a potential to do damage. But you can't think like that, can you? Because as soon as you do, you start altering yourself to fit somebody else's. Yeah. So, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do. I think it's going to be really interesting, because there's definitely there's in this new record, there's definitely a few kind of grenades, but they needed to come out. They would have done damage to me, so they may as well go out there and do damage to someone else. Just damage everyone else. Yes, totally. I'm taking you all down with me. And so do you have any thoughts about what your audience are going to think about the even more honest Thea? Because you must know them pretty well after having had Angels in the Abattoir, Mark 1, and then the Patreon.
Yeah, I think that, I always find that kind of like my audience are really interesting beast, because they kind of come almost in two quite distinct halves. There's the half that have been with me since I was a sort of, grumpy looking 20-year-old. Now I'm a grumpy looking 40-year-old. So much has changed. And then there's another half that kind of arrived when I was making slightly prettier music and music that was slightly easier on the ear. And they do cross over, but there's quite a distinct line down the middle. And I think that the ones that have been with me the longest will probably be the ones that are kind of like, oh yeah, we've been waiting for this for a while. And then the ones that prefer the prettier music might be a bit uncomfortable. There are a few people that don't like me swearing in songs, I find it really difficult not to swear just like every 10 seconds. So not swearing in songs is quite it's quite hard for me.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often, but when it does happen, it needs to be there. It's like you were saying, you kind of like trying to find your most concise way of saying something, and just occasionally like saying fuck in a song is really, really important. It's really important.
I agree.
To me. Yeah.
I totally agree. And if it's all the time, it's one thing. But if it's because it's the only word that makes sense.
Exactly.
Or the only word that says what you want to say. I don't know, with all respect to your audience, I question the motive of someone not liking a woman swearing in a song, because what are you really saying there?
Yeah.
If you trust your favourite artist, or you support these artists as your favourites, it's up to them what they say. You can't police the lyrics. That's ridiculous to me.
Yeah, I agree, and I think an awful lot of the audience would say the same thing. I don't know whether with them it's a woman swearing. I think certainly that is a big deal to a lot of men not liking women swearing.
That's why I question. Like, I always would rather assume it's nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Because it's a much nicer way to live.
Yes, isn't it? Though?
I just wonder. I wonder when it's to do with something like swearing or whatever. Because I don't know, I've got an awful lot of shit over the years. I actually had a running accident and knocked my lip ring out about 6 weeks ago. Ow. Which is pretty sore. And I tried to get a new one in and I couldn't get it in, so that's why I don't have one anymore. That's the only reason. And I'm not going out at all. There's no way I'm going to a piercing salon in this day and age. So that is a very frivolous outing, so I'm not doing that. But I've got so much shit over the years for having a lip ring. I don't think that's disassociated from my gender. That's because someone wants me to look a certain way and they think that having that is off-putting to them because they want to think certain things about me or whatever, and it's like a barrier of some kind. It's so strange. It's such a strange thing.
It is really extraordinary. That's really
it's
extraordinary. Just a
lip ring. Who cares?
It just that's one of those things that just doesn't compute for me.
No, it doesn't compute to me either.
No.
Anyway, I digress. But yes, I'm just interested in having had such. I don't want to keep banging on about its long career because, but it's impressive. It's amazing to me that people can keep making music and keep doing this as their primary thing. It's really cool and just really respect it. But having had that time and met a lot of people on tour, put out so many albums, I'm just interested to know how your relationship with your audience has changed. I think a lot of them have kind of grown up with me, which is lovely, so an awful lot of people that I will look out into a crowd when I play gigs when I'm allowed to, and I will see faces that I've known since I was 19 and they were 19, and that's kind of weird. It's a bit like being followed around by your school class for a lifetime. But it's lovely as well because I kind of like I know a lot about their lives, and I know a lot of their names, and you don't get careers like that these days. I mean, arguably you didn't even really when I started, but it was just that I had to find ways of making music and kind of making my career work that weren't whatever normal is. But certainly there was a normal way to have a music career when I started. So back in 1996, it was very definitely you make a demo, you get signed by a record label, the record label invests, and you make a debut album. And if your debut album does well, you might get to make a second album. And if it doesn't, then you're dropped and that's your career over. Yeah. And that was how it worked. And I just never bought into that. I always used to say, but look at REM. They weren't successful until their 8th record. But nobody was interested in that because essentially that kind of gives an artist power. And as soon as you give an artist power, you remove power from the middlemen. And that's a problem. Yes. But
you see... that I go back to being arrogant. I was arrogant enough to say, but bollocks to that. That doesn't, that doesn't help me, does it? That just helps you. So I'm going to find a way to bypass that. And in doing so, I kind of got all these benefits I didn't even really think about, like growing up with an audience and kind of like bringing an audience with me and having a life with an audience, like this sort of ongoing relationship. I mean, some of these people, if I'd been married to them, we'd be like celebrating our silver wedding anniversary. Not quite, you know what I mean? It'd be like, it's the longest relationship I've ever had with some of my audience. And that's quite extraordinary, really. That's quite an extraordinary thing.
It is.
Bit weird, but good.
But I totally understand. Because, my first record came out in 2010. I didn't know that there was a potential for any kind of audience thing like you're describing, because the stuff I'd done before was I was doing session jobs, playing bass and singing, playing guitar and things for other bands. And those artists didn't even ever really seem to meet any of their fans.
Yeah.
It was very, very separate. Bands on labels who were hiring musicians to play with them and touring that way, and then not meeting anyone at the merch. They wouldn't go to the merch afterwards. They wouldn't talk to anyone. They didn't seem to know anyone who was in the audience. There was no connection whatsoever. And so then when I started doing my own stuff and doing it in a very different way to that, it was mind-blowing to me. It was really cool. And so similarly, there's probably people who I've had a longer relationship with than I've had with my husband. Yeah. We've been together for nearly 6 years, but I've been doing this for 10 or 11. So it is weird, but I think it's the most wonderful weird, because it's those people showing up for you again and again and again.
Totally.
It really took me a long time it's not that I expect it, but I do also feel more confident in it. So when I put my new record out, I hope people will buy it, but I'm not so frightened that I'll sell nothing, and I won't be able to do this anymore. I don't feel that way. I just feel like this is the next one. It may go worse or better than the last one, I don't know, but it won't be game over or anything, because why would it be game over? I want to do this forever. Anyway. So did you feel that from the start? I know you've had different label experiences as well, but was there ever a point where you went, oh no, this is my job, this is fine now, this is just my job now?
I don't think I've got to that point yet.
It took me till last year.
Oh, that's good.
That's all right.
I think that I've definitely got the whole imposter syndrome, and I think that will be with me forever. And I'm kind of all right with that, because it keeps me grateful. And I think gratitude is a really important thing to take with you if you embark on a music career, because it's taken a huge amount of hard work, but it is an insanely lucky thing to be able to do. To be able to get up every morning and say, I'm a musician, I'm a songwriter. That's ridiculous to me. I always want to feel like this might be the last record I ever make, because I think it makes me make better albums, and I think that it makes me uncomfortable, and I quite like feeling uncomfortable all the time. Maybe not all the time. There are occasions where I'd quite like to feel comfortable, but it's not happened yet. And I think that whole audience relationship thing is an interesting one, because again, when I started, the idea of it was ridiculously uncool to go out and sign records. Like, you were actively discouraged from doing it. It was like, if you do that, you just, you look like some kind of sad cottage industry. And I was like, but these people are spending money. They're standing there. Some of them know my lyrics. I want to know what they're like. I want to know who they are. And that was, I was discouraged from that. And of course, there's an ulterior motive, because again, it gives you power. It gives you a kind of direct connection with people. And so, I mean, that's why I can't speak. It's an extraordinary thing.
Yeah.
It's an extraordinary thing to be able to do what I do, and to be able to talk to people and to have that relationship and that connection with people. And so, I don't ever take it for granted. Never will.
Good. You're so good. I like you so much. We've never got to chat this much. It's really nice. I know it's a really sort of... I know it's a contrived way of having a conversation, but they are the conversations I would have loved to have anyway. There's just never any time. No, we never have time, because you're always dashing off doing something, and so am I. But maybe one day we'll sit down at a bar or something. God, imagine that. That would be nice. I know. It would, wouldn't it? I can't imagine it. No, neither can I. It's been too long. 8 months in this room. It's a nice room. I feel very lucky. It looks like an amazing room. It's pretty cool. Welcome to Correspondence Corner, where I pass the mic to a member of the audience to ask, what was the first album that changed your life? And what was the most recent?
I'm Natalie. I'm a community worker based in Bristol, and the most important things in my life are my little boy Will, my husband Mark, and my family. I'm not sure what the first album was that changed me exactly, as I started enjoying music when I was small. However, one early record that really stuck with me is Big Night Out by Dennis Rollins. He's a trombonist and mainly does jazz funk music. And as a trombonist myself, this album secured in my head that funk music was where I really wanted to focus my attention. And this was really big at the time because I was a teenager trying to work out what I wanted my sound to be like. I would say a recent album that I really love, other than Penfriend, obviously, is Revolution of Mind by She Drew the Gun. Both the music and message are both fantastic and gets me thinking and dancing, which is always a great combo.
Thank you so much, Natalie, and a big friendly wave to you and yours over the other side of Bristol. I hope Natalie has inspired you to get in touch and let me know your answers to those questions. If you'd like your musical memories featured in a future episode, just drop me a line on laura@penfriend.rocks. Now, back to my conversation with Thea Gilmore. I spoke to Catherine Ann Davies, who was the anchoress, and she was talking about the natural peaks and troughs of a lifelong music career. And that's because she played in Simple Minds for a few years and got a really good perspective from them about that, about like how you navigate that kind of stuff. Because when you start out making music, it's all kind of up and up and up, or like aiming up and up and up. And then naturally, if you do stuff for a long time, you can't keep doing that. It's never going to do that. So having been releasing music for what are we going to say, 20 years, 21, 24, some years?
Yeah, something like that.
for a few years.
20 odd years.
How have you navigated that? Is that something you've had in your mind? Do you see it that way even?
Yeah, I totally do. And I think it's quite difficult. It's a bit of a sort of, it's slightly mind-bending. So yeah, when you start and you're kind of getting reviews and everything's a first, I think that the whole idea of, the first review you get, the first live review you get, the first in-store you do, the first gig you do, and everything is kind of like pointing upwards. And that is quite extraordinary. And I had a good lot of very good firsts. And then things plateau, and that's kind of all right. A plateau's okay. But then when things start going down, when you stop getting reviews, or when you start, I don't mind negative reviews, actually. I quite enjoy a negative review here and there. Not all the time. But when nobody's interested anymore. And again, I think as a female, that you feel that almost more acutely because you can feel the time ticking. If you're a woman in this business, much more than I think than men do. Certainly the male songwriters that I know, anyway.
Okay.
Because you become acutely aware that you are no longer relevant, and there's that kind of like idea of relevance in music if you're a woman.
And so, between which ages do you think they perceive women to be relevant?
Between about 17 and 24, I think.
Right. So you've got to be really fast.
Yeah, you've got to be quick.
With very little life experience, you have to be the very best you can ever be.
Absolutely.
Between those 5 years.
And know everything and be able to impart infinite wisdom and then go away and be quiet and sit in a corner and accept that you're old at 25. Yeah.
Okay. I missed that memo, thankfully.
Yeah. Good for you. But yeah, I mean, it does. I think sometimes it can take you to some dark places. The idea of relevance in music is, I think that's quite. I find that quite hard. I found I wrestle quite a lot with just feeling kind of mute sometimes, and that my perspective is kind of no longer something that people want to hear. But then, of course, as with everything, as in life, you kind of kick yourself and are kind of like, that's absolute bullshit. There are people your age who want to hear your perspective, and a lot of people younger as well, and that's it. And so you keep going and you keep making music, and the only thing you can do is keep writing stuff that kind of connects with you and hope that it does the same with everybody else, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's always the only thing that will ever kick me out of a kind of like a bit of a sort of slump is just making stuff. Just create something. Does it move me? If it does, if I sit there and think, fuck yeah, that properly resonates with me, then I figure it probably will with someone else as well.
Yeah. The mind's a funny thing, isn't it? I was talking to a friend, we were texting the other day about maybe writing our memoirs.
Ooh.
Because it's just a nice thing to do. Like, whether or not for publication is another sort of matter, but I really like the idea of writing out the things that are the main memories in my head and sort of putting them in order almost, and trying to work out how I feel about them now and what I've learned from them, stuff like that. Again, whether or not for publication is another question, but I was saying to her, I'd love to write them, but I'm just such a boring person. I was like, nothing's really happened, and I don't even know if I've got anything to say. And she just wrote back, just going, what a load of bollocks. I said, oh, thanks. But it's just to say that we all have those moments of going, well, I've got nothing to say about that. Why would anything I have to say be useful to anybody else? What would be the point of that? And what an egotistical thing to do in the first place, to offer an opinion or offer a story or anything. But that's just in a moment of slight silliness, really, because most of the time I'm really happy to do that stuff. That's what my songs are. But yeah, we all have those moments of going, well, but I'm just an empty void.
Yeah,
there's nothing interesting in here. So that was funny, because she was feeling the same way, but she's incredibly interesting and she'd definitely write her memoir. So anyway, we're going to egg each other on, I think.
Oh, good. Well, I can't wait to read your memoir. That's going to be very interesting.
Well, I'm glad you think so. See, I don't think it would be, but it's because I already know. I already know it. Have you got any designs on writing your memoir?
No, mine. No, definitely not. No, mine.
Do you feel like you've done it with the songs already?
No, not really. I just think I'm not sure that. I think it might burn a hole through the page. My memoir. I think I'll leave it in my brain and let it do its damage there.
Oh,
yeah, no, you don't.
Kind of like that. Oh, that's a cool way of putting it. How does it feel to be one of Bruce Springsteen's favourite artists? Because you are, aren't you?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's lovely. It's absolutely lovely. It's a real honour and it's a real privilege. But I mean, he is probably, of all the people that I've met who are, to use that horrible phrase, famous, he's probably the biggest music consumer I have ever come across. He's absolutely extraordinary. And he doesn't expect people to send him stuff for nothing either. One of his favourite things is going into record shops. He's got certain record shops around the world that he likes visiting. And he just goes and buys a shitload of music and listens. And I mean, he's just, he's a proper force of nature. And so, yeah, it's a genuinely lovely, lovely thing. And he is a genuinely lovely bloke. He is as lovely as you would want Bruce Springsteen to be.
Yeah. I just know that when little things like, I mean, not little, that's a big thing, but whenever like little things have happened to me where, oh, someone's listened to this or whatever. When I first met you and you were like, oh, hi, and you'd heard my stuff, and it's like, what? Thea Gilmore? What? Stuff like that. It's fine now. Like, I know you're a normal person now. That's okay. But that stuff really gives you a boost, doesn't it? That stuff really can change your day or your perspective on what you're doing so much.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, I've got a really crap memory, and so quite often someone will say, "Oh, you know, such and such, they really like your stuff," and I'm like, I don't even know who that is because, like, I can't remember names and I can't remember faces. So, I mean, obviously, I knew who Bruce Springsteen was, but yes. Yeah, so that doesn't help me in a lot of respects. But no, it is utterly lovely, and it's to. I think just to have allies like that and know that you can send music to somebody and it will be listened to by somebody who has that much experience and that much kind of understanding of the way that the music industry works and has changed and the way that music itself has changed and they've changed. I mean, God, to actually have kind of to look back on your career and say, yeah, well, that kind of musical trajectory, I did that. I made that happen. Is I can't imagine that. It must be incredible. Such power.
But that's what I think you have. You have that too.
Oh, no, not me. I'm not well enough known, and that is fine.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want that responsibility. No. That would be awful. I'm very happy in my little box.
Fame does seem awful.
It really does, yeah.
It's not something to strive for. Was it ever in your mind that you wanted to make music so people knew who you were and would tell you were great and stuff?
No. I all of my friends will tell you I'm really deeply uncomfortable with people knowing who I am. So most of the time, if I meet somebody, it will take months before I tell them what I do. And one of my biggest joys is meeting someone who has absolutely no idea or doesn't even like the sort of music that I make. That's like, I've met someone recently who is kind of like a sort of drum and bass fan, and it's just brilliant because they had no idea what I did, no interest actually in what I did. And I was like, this is fantastic. I could be a really good friend of yours because we got no musical connection at all. It's fab. And now I quite like drum and bass, which is also brilliant. So, yeah.
Very cool. Well, there's not a lot to talk about, is there? If someone, Tom Robinson was talking about this, if you meet someone who's well known, and or you know, whether they're just well known to you or well known in the world, if you just say stuff like, "Oh, I think you're brilliant," or "I love your albums," there's nothing they can say back to you really. It's not a conversation opener. They're going to feel like, "Oh well." The only real thing to say as the artist is "thank you so much," isn't it? And obviously that's lovely.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying don't give compliments to musicians because we love them. Please give us compliments. But that's not going to lead to a long-lasting friendship, is it? Because there's no conversation there.
Yeah, no. And also, I think most musicians would say that other people's lives are much more interesting because that's one of the reasons that well, that's certainly one of the reasons that I write anyway, is because I find other people's lives just really compelling and kind of like, I want to make my life sound as interesting as theirs. And I can only do it through the medium of song.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm like Julie Andrews. But
yeah.
So yeah, I just really like kind of like hanging back and listening to other people talk. And if people don't know what I do, that's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I definitely feel the same way. When I used to go back to visit my old town where I went to school, I would sometimes bump into some of the girls from school, like people who were not really my friends, whatever. You know, they would then be like, "Oh, hey, great to see you." But like, I'm sure it is. Yeah, right. Whatever. "Oh, I see you live in London now," they would say when I did. And, "Oh, it must be so exciting and glamorous." I'm like, okay, whatever. "What do you do?" And try and turn it around. And they would always say something like, "Oh, it's just so boring." But they'd be like a nurse or a teacher or something that's someone who's actually like inspiring young minds or helping people stay alive and stuff. And I'd be like, it's not that I don't love what I do, but if you knew the amount of sitting around making small talk I had to do in order to play for however long, you know, you might find your life a bit more interesting.
Yeah.
And I think people need to remember that. Like, it's not that we're not so boring you shouldn't support our music and help us out, but you are more interesting. Yeah,
absolutely,
definitely.
And also, I mean, what terrifying jobs!
I know.
I used to teach a little vocal group at my kids' school because they didn't have much music, and I remember standing in front of 30 kids, and they were all kind of there and ready to make music, ready to sing, and I was just like, shit, this is terrifying. Just like one wrong move and I could put you guys off music for life. Yeah. It's just like I couldn't bear that responsibility. I mean, imagine being a teacher. Every single day you have to go in and deal with, you know, blank sheets of paper, kind of like, you know, help to, oh God, no, it would just...
It's an incredible thing people are doing, especially at the moment. It's so hard.
Such a responsibility. So oh my God, yeah, absolutely. So all the teachers out there, massive, massive respect. I think you're amazing.
Yeah. I've done some talks at colleges and stuff. I quite enjoy doing them after the fact, but it's the most terrified I ever get.
Yeah.
And the reason I started doing it is because I knew how scared I was at doing any kind of public speaking without holding a guitar. And so I thought, I'll just do loads of it and then I'll get over it.
And did you?
And I didn't. No. So then I decided to do a one-woman show at Edinburgh Fringe instead because I thought that would definitely get me over this public speaking terror. And it did, actually. But then I haven't done it for like 5 years. So I'm probably back to square one again. So even just the standing up and talking and feeling comfortable thing is, I have massive respect.
I can't do it either. You see, I start to cry.
Oh, do you?
That's how soft I am. Yeah. So if I have to speak, like I can do it, like you say, if I'm doing it sort of under the banner of a gig.
Yeah.
it's fine, because there's a process that I go through to get kind of into that mode.
Yeah.
But if it's me, just solely me without music, I get, it's ridiculous. It's like a tap. My eyes just go, doesn't matter. I'm even telling a joke and I'm crying. Yes.
I suppose that's how you could sell it, isn't it? It'd be like £15 for a ticket to come and see Thea Gilmore cry on stage for no good reason.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
It's the way forward. But because really, we're all holding in so many feelings this year. I feel like the first gig's back. I don't know. I'm a bit afraid that the audience will talk even more than usual because they'll be so excited to be out their homes. And I wouldn't actually be able to blame them for that at all. But I kind of feel like maybe I won't play the first time. I'll just be like, you just chat, let's just hang out. And maybe we could all just feel our feelings together in a room. And then we'll add the music later.
I think that's a good idea.
I don't know.
Definitely.
Yeah, fingers crossed that won't be too much longer.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Everyone's doing what they can, which is the most important thing. I wanted to ask you, we've kind of talked about this already, but what is success to you, and have you ever experienced it?
Yeah, my idea of success is continuing.
Yeah.
So yes, I have experienced success. There are occasions where I would like other people's idea of success. Like I'd like to sell more records. I would, that would be nice to sort of get a bigger audience. Mm-hmm. But to other people, I think that to some people I look successful, and to others I look completely unsuccessful. And I think that in itself is a measure of success. I think that I love that. I love being that sort of in between, unquantifiable pain in the arse that won't go away, like the shit you can't flush down a toilet. That's my idea of success.
Yeah. We've got a great new tagline for your next artist bio.
Thea Gilmore.
Thea Gilmore, the shit you can't flush down the toilet.
That's it. There you go. Yeah, I'm going to go with that one forever now. But I love that, because that is success. You can't get rid of me. But I've never quite been successful enough to kind of, be better than the shit, and that's okay. I'm good. I'm good with that. I'm at peace with that.
That's great. I love that you're not going away. I've been starting to think about myself in that way. And this, I said to Catherine, I feel like it's a war of attrition at this point.
Yeah.
Just keep going. I'm not going away. I will put another album out whether you like it or not. I don't even know who I'm addressing at this point, because it's not like anyone's really bothered. No one's bothering to tell me not to either, which is quite nice. So yeah, just keep doing it. I don't know if we have to feel like we're pushing against something to make stuff.
But we are, though. I mean, I think you're right. I think we do have to feel it. But we are consistently pushing against something. We're pushing back against an industry that is trying to shut this stuff down, continually trying to shut this stuff down, continually trying to shut independent music down, because it's either in their eyes valueless or it's dangerous. And if you get really, really lucky, it's both at the same time.
Yeah. And so what are the ways you feel they're shutting it down? Because I can only imagine with me, it's just sort of indifference and no support is the way I'm being shut down. But I don't allow that to shut me down, but it stops me from getting to any other kind of helpful, like a level where people would be helping to support it and get it to more people. That's all on me.
Yeah, but that kind of is shutting it down in a way. It's kind of like, it's I suppose it's giving you a ceiling, isn't it? It's kind of giving you it's creating limitations where there shouldn't be limitations.
Yeah.
Really, there should be access to grow your career to the point that you want to grow it to. And I think certainly in my career, I've definitely come across obstacle after obstacle, because I don't make music that people want to necessarily play on daytime radio, or that it's not necessarily comfortable, or it deals with topics that are uncomfortable, and so they put this great they that I keep going on about. But
I want to meet they one day and ask them what's going on.
Yeah, I know. Can we put all of they in one room? That would be quite nice, and find out what their plans are. But it's definitely there. There's definitely this sort of elastic ceiling that I certainly feel constantly kind of that I'm pushing against, and very occasionally I'll kind of peer through, and it's actually not that great on the other side anyway, so I'm kind of like, I'm all right underneath it, but there are artists, younger artists probably, or people who are hungrier for success than I am, who deserve the right to get through that.
Yeah.
And can't for whatever reason. And that, it really bugs me. I do worry about, people who are kind of like 16, 17 starting out now, and how they find pathways into creating careers in music, like I've managed to do and like you've managed to do. I don't know how you do that now.
No.
I mean, they're smart, so they'll find a way, I'm sure. But
yeah, it's a worry when people are obsessed about numbers of streams and numbers of likes on a post and stuff, when that doesn't have anything to do with creating an audience who will sustain you financially.
No.
Because you can still do the things you can still find an audience who will sustain you financially, but you have to know that that's more important than the other stuff, I feel like.
Yeah.
So how do you learn that, other than, because you need to also be able to receive that. So I could say that to a bunch of young artists and they'd be like, well, what do you know, grandma?
Yeah.
Like, why are you trying to tell me how to do it? Like, sort of thing. So yeah, I don't think there's a way of transmitting that particularly to them. They have to find out for themselves.
They do, and because I wouldn't have listened when I was.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. It's impossible. It's an impossible situation. I think you've just got to trust the fact that God, yeah. I mean, like 16, 17-year-olds are so much smarter than I was when I was 16, 17. So I guess they'll make their own way, and I think that there's a lot of there's an awful lot of change going to come with that generation as they grow up. It's going to be a very interesting time, I think. Yeah,
and I thank my specific audience all the time for being people who know that we need support, so that we do need you to buy things if you can.
Yeah,
and it's a choice these days. So when you choose to do it, thank you very much, because that means that we can make more music.
Yeah,
and I will always be grateful to the boyfriend I was with, who was around when I was just starting my first project off, who told me to get a mailing list.
Yeah.
Because without that, I would have nothing. So if you're listening and you do make music, please get a mailing list and just thank us later. Right?
Good point.
Because otherwise you just really have nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing. Nothing! Anyway, being very negative. I'll just shout nothing for the whole rest of the podcast. How has the internet impacted your career, and what is your current relationship with smartphones and social media?
We have a very on-off relationship. I have an awful lot to thank the internet for, obviously, because of patronage sites, because of Angels in the Abattoir and now Patreon. I literally couldn't exist were it not for my Patreon site. I'd definitely be doing another job right now. But I find social media it just drains all of the goodwill and blood out of my body. And so I don't really, I mean, I get told off all the time by people who know more than me for not posting enough on Twitter and for not having an Instagram account. That apparently is an absolute crime these days. And it just takes up so much time, and I would rather be making things.
Yeah.
I don't really want to be telling people, what I had for dinner. I want to be writing songs. But I do recognise it's kind of part of the job, but it's just not the part I like at all. And I would happily, if it disappeared, I would be so free. They all got shut down. It would make me so happy. Not the internet. I mean, the internet, if you can kind of curate your internet connections with people, that's fine. But this kind of like mass sort of homogenous tweeting, Facebook, it doesn't do it for me at all.
I think it's got way out of control. I used to be super into it, and I used to credit it for my ability to grow my audience. And I think it's obviously got something to do with it. So I'm talking about social media here, not necessarily the internet. Because my mailing list grew over years of touring as well, and different ways of people joining it. But the Twitter stuff, Instagram stuff, I think this constant sort of live casting thing is fucking weird.
It is. I think I'm too slow. I think my sort of reaction speeds and just the way that I choose to operate in my world is too slow for social media. I like the kind of like slow progression of things. Yeah.
But I think that's good, because it's about considering things and having depth and having a thought that's longer than 2 sentences. If you're going to write something, if you think something or have an emotion about something, wouldn't you rather write a song or write a more in-depth piece about it to share with people who will actually receive it in the way that you intended, i.e. people who know you?
Yeah.
So through your Patreon, I get the impression I've always got the impression that that's what you were doing, like you're more of a deep thinker and it's more considered.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably also partly because there's a bit of a control freak in me as well. And so the idea of just dashing something off in however many characters are allowed now on Twitter, I've lost track. But it doesn't, it happens too quickly and you don't have control over that very sort of quick, instant response. And so, there's definitely a part of me that likes to just take a step back, think about it. And more often than not, if I take a step back and think about it, I just don't write anything at all. So like when I put something on Twitter, yes, it is super considered. And there have been times where I've got into Twitter arguments or it happened only the other day where somebody tweeted at me. And it was just a very sort of snarky tweet from somebody that I vaguely knew. And I knew that there was a sort of personal reason behind the reason that they tweeted, and I really wanted to just go, right, okay, let's do this here and now, let's have a chat about this,
gloves off.
And then I thought, nah, don't be ridiculous, because and so I stepped back and I haven't responded to it at all. And it's like, I don't know, it doesn't really do it for me. I don't get any satisfaction out of Twitter arguments or Twitter in general. And Facebook drives me up the wall. Yeah, I'm actually just like secretly 80. I think what it is. Sorry to any 80-year-olds out there who are like super social media fans, which I'm sure there are many.
I just think there are tactical ways of using these things without that. I don't want that to sound horrible, because it's not about like, if I tactically use something, I'm going to make loads of money. It's just more like there's a way of tactically using it so that you're not on there all day getting more and more depressed and sad and sort of suffocating under this very shallow way of communication. But you can get your point across. You can talk to people who want to talk to you and not spend all day on it, basically, which is what I've been trying to do, which is very helpful. So just setting very specific times, I will check things, and then try not to get into that horrible cycle of scrolling through everything again, check, which is just a dopamine issue. So that's something I've been trying to do, because these things are really powerful, but they can also just be a massive waste of time if you're supposed to be doing something else, not doing that. Which I'd say is most people. Yes,
most of the time.
Yeah.
And I think it's difficult when you're a musician as well, because you can very easily say, but it is work. It is sitting scrolling through Twitter is part of my job, but actually it is just stopping you from doing anything useful. So, or it is me anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, same here. And it's just about, I think, stepping back and thinking what's actually nourishing me and helping my brain be the best or happiest or calmest or whatever you want it to be. And those things aren't doing it for me, really. So I'm trying to step back. But because it's so addictive, I find it really, really hard. So I'm a hypocrite because I've been on it today and I will probably go on it later. And it's hard. It's something I'm trying to deal with, but it's hard. But it's interesting to hear your perspective on it, because there's so many good things about it. Yeah. You can come across people. You can come across new artists you haven't heard of before, or you can share stuff, and it is wonderful. But there's just that thing of, it's not all day, and it's not your work. Yeah. It's not my work. Anyway. Right. I would love to ask you, which 3 pieces of your own work would you recommend as a gateway for new listeners? And I'm saying that in a funny voice because you've got so many songs, I can't imagine how you would choose.
I can't remember most of them. That's the problem. That really is a tough one. I mean, I suppose I would always say the newest one. So the record that's going to come out next year, I think, is the most me. But beyond that, I mean, I would probably pick a track called Cuts Those Walls off the last record, which that's probably me doing it's like an attempt at me being political but succinct, which I find quite difficult to do both at the same time. I can be political and I can be succinct, but putting them together can be a bit tricky sometimes. And that sort of, I think, nailed an idea in song form that I like. So that's kind of like my kind of writing about something else, Personal stuff. I was just listening to a song that I wrote back in 2000 called "The Things We Never Said." I'm quite fond of that as a track. That's off an album called "Rules for Jokers" from 2001. And it still holds water as a proper personal song. I don't know. And probably I guess I'd have to choose one of the poems off the brand new record, which is rubbish because no one can listen to it yet. But but when it comes out, have a listen to it.
Yeah.
There's a poem called "Of All the Violence I Have Known," and that sums me up at the minute.
Wow. And what are the best ways for people to support Thea Gilmore's journey through life and music?
Well, joining the mailing list is one. So my website, theagilmore.net, has my mailing list stuff on it. But I do have a Patreon page, which obviously that's a very deep level of support. That it's always great to get new patrons, but if you just want to kind of find out about me, I am on Twitter. So come and say hello on Twitter, and I will attempt to say hello back, albeit mildly grudgingly. But beyond that, just listen. Just listen and find ways to say hi, and I will find ways to say hi back. There's always ways to connect.
Wonderful. What's your next creative adventure?
It will be this new record, but there's also another record that's probably going to come out on the same day. So it might be 2 albums in one day. There's a bit of a story behind it, which will take far too long to go into, and I'm probably not even allowed to go into it at the moment. So,
right.
But that will be quite interesting because they're very, very different records, and they're doing completely different things but telling the same story.
That's really exciting. Are you able to say when that will be? Or if it hasn't been announced, don't worry about it.
I would love to tell you, because I thought it was going to be in March, but I think COVID's going to put everything back. So I reckon it's going to be April, May time next year. So,
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be listening out. I'm excited. I'm really excited for you. It's been lovely to catch up.
You too.
Thank you for saying yes to doing this.
Yeah, I'm sorry it's taken so long.
That's okay.
I hope I've got all the recording right.
I hope you have too. We'll see, won't we? Thank you very much, Thea.
No worries.
I had such a lovely time talking to Thea, and I hope you enjoyed listening to us. I've made a special page on my website to help you start exploring Thea's music, videos and Patreon subscription club, so head to penfriend.rocks/Thea for that. If you enjoyed listening today, please click that subscribe button and check out the previous episodes. I've been lining up lots more exciting guests to take us well into 2021, so it would be lovely to have you with me on the journey. Massive thanks and love to my Correspondence Club, who power the making of new music and podcast episodes through their subscriptions. If you'd like to find out more about that, come and visit penfriend.rocks to browse free and paid monthly and annual tiers, with all sorts of fun member perks included. I've got 2 more episodes for you before Christmas, so join me next week for my conversation with dun dun dun, my secret collaborator. Till then, take care.